I just wanted to thank all of you for being Matt's friend. Matt, as you may have guessed, was a handful. And this front row consists of Mary Granger, my wife Nora, Dave Goss, Anne Marie Goss, and we all spent a great deal of time in molding Matthew to what he became. Now, this was sort of accidental, but it got molded. And Matthew, when I think of him, I can come up with 100 stories. And in those 100 stories, I tried to find some type of theme. And I really couldn't come up with much of a theme from 0 to 5. But then, from 5 until the end of the schooling, it was the principal called and asked. In kindergarten, the principal called and asked if I could dissuade Matthew from convincing Susie not to lay down in the middle of 28th Street in Boise to try to see if she would stop traffic. And so I went to school, and Matthew and I had a very firm conversation. And Matthew agreed that he would not do that. The next day, the principal called and asked if I could dissuade Matthew from convincing Sally not to lay down on 28th Street to see if she could stop traffic. And that is sort of how it went each year of Matt's schooling. We finally got to about 5th or 6th grade, and I think maybe all of you remember a pink bike. A pink bike that was just about this tall. That was his pride and joy. And Matthew, that was his only Christmas present that year. And it was a pretty expensive Christmas present, and so that was all he got. Now his brother Chris and my daughter Jennifer got many presents, but Matthew sat on his bike, and that was his happiest Christmas. Well, anyway, I didn't realize what Matt had in store for this bike. I got a call from the principal asking me to come to school. I did. And actually, he said, Mr. Beer, do you know any reason why your son would have $80 in his pocket? And I sort of flippantly said to this principal, who did not have much of a sense of humor, by the way, well, I always give him $75 for lunch, but $80 is out of the question. So I didn't make a good impression, but I got to school and asked him about it. He said that it had been a deal where little Billy, who was in 2nd grade, and that was 5th or 6th, wanted to rent his bike, and so he rented it by the block. $20 a block. And little Billy wrote it for 4 blocks, and that's $80. And Matt had it in his pocket. So I sort of told Matt that it had to come back to Billy, because Billy had really borrowed that rent money from his mother. And so Matt was upset, to say the least. And there was something about the constitutional right to contract and all of that. And in any event, it got settled, but the deal between Matt and me never did. In the last 10 years, that's from 25 to 35, Matt said to me, I was dead wrong, that Billy owed him $80, and he was serious. And so that was Matthew. Well, Matthew finally, in about 7th or 8th grade, I was getting so many calls from the principal that I figured out that I was actually spending more time in 7th and 8th grade than Matthew was. And I was getting some pretty good grades. But in any event, Matthew, always sort of fought the system when it went to school. A very bright young man, but he did fight the system. On December 7th at 3:09, Matt died. 18 years before, his mother died in a car accident that he was involved in. Oddly, the time of death of his mother and the time of his death were the same. 409, 300. Difference is Pacific time, Mountain time. So we have to ask ourselves, why didn't Matt die 18 years ago? And why did he die now? 18 years ago, I think, is answered in this room. Because the friendships that he forged are right here. And why he died now, I don't know. But he did. It was a medical mistake. But I think, as Sean said, this is good energy. We want it to continue. And even though a mistake was made, and 2 medications were given that basically formed a cocktail, a lethal cocktail, that's what caused Matt's death. It shouldn't have occurred. But it did. So what can we take from that? One, the friendship that you all have, that we all have. 2, Matt had a philosophy of trying to do something good for some person. Maybe that is what we can do. Again, thank you so much for your kindness to me, to my family, and thank you for showing. Appreciate it.